Good evening. I'm Siwapili Rose Amador Lebeau, and today we're going to welcome Dr. Deborah Miranda, and she's an enrolled member of the Ohlone Costanoan Esselen Nation of California. She's also of Chumash and Jewish ancestry, and Deborah is an associate professor of English at Washington and Lee University in Virginia. She's authored several books, the most recent, Bad Indians, a Tribal Memoir. Welcome, Deborah. It's so nice to have you here all the way from Virginia.
Thank you. Thanks
Is
for
our
having
weather
me
a little
here.
bit better than yours?
Yes, we were 10 degrees this morning. So
Oh, so I shouldn't complain about
I'll
the
take
rain,
the rain.
huh?
Definitely.
So you've written several books, and this is what you're about your third?
This is my third one. It's the only one that's mixed genre and not just poetry.
Okay, and you told me that you wanted to be an author, but what?
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I was writing stories. And when I got a little older and more towards college age, people told me, well, you can't be a writer. Indians aren't writers, and you won't make any money. So I became a special ed teacher and put writing aside for quite a few years. And then eventually it caught back up with me.
Oh, good.
And I had to keep writing. And I went back to school when my kids were in middle school and got a PhD in English at the University of Washington.
Well, good for you, and congratulations. And I'm glad they told you that because you got a PhD. And you wrote books, right?
Yes.
All
Sometimes
right.
the timing has to be right.
So, Bad Indians, where did you come up with that name?
I did a lot of research about California Indians, and you'd be surprised how many thousands of times that phrase, bad Indians,
I'm not
comes
surprised.
up in the old archives, in the mission records, in newspaper articles. So-and-so was a bad Indian. He did this horrible thing. So you could either be a good Indian or a bad Indian. And my dad at one point said to me, you know, even when we were dead, we were never good enough. Because, you know, the saying was, the only good Indian is a dead
that's
Indian.
true.
And he said, even when we're dead, we're not good enough. And so why not be bad? And so the combination of those things made me realize that bad Indians are what got me here. You know, my ancestors who were bad and who broke the rules and refused to give in and refused to die off, they're the reason I'm here. So I should be praising them.
That's true, and that's pretty much the case with a lot of California Indians, and that's why they're not enrolled or recognized, because they refuse to submit to the government requirements for all of the above.
Right.
And it goes all the way back to when we were in school, because I remember even having to do those projects, and the way they would read or tell us the history, it was, you're sitting there sinking because, you were a bad Indian,
Yes,
right?
exactly. There was no such thing as a good Indian, so you must be bad.
And I noticed on the cover of your book, you are sitting on a horse and you have a cowboy hat on you, and you're like a little cowgirl.
I'm
Right.
about 4 years old, and I think it was taken in Los Angeles probably right before my mom moved us out of Los Angeles to Washington State. And there used to be photographers who would come around and set you up on a pony, dress you up, take your picture, and then, you know, charge your parents $5 or something. So I liked that picture. My publisher, Heyday, liked that picture because it was sort of the anti-Indian stereotype.
I have a good friend who's a great comedian. He's Danae Mark Yaffe. He's been on the show. And he said he didn't learn he was Navajo until he was in his 20s. And he says, you know, all this time I realized I was suiting up for the wrong team, you know? And that's what the picture reminded me of,
Yep.
you know, you're
Yeah.
suiting up for the wrong team. You want to assimilate, you want to be, you know, the dominant culture. So as a result of that, there's the fourth grade project in California that we're all required to write projects on the missions. Now, I remember going to the missions and my dad saying, that's where they buried all the Indians and those mass graves, and they were built by the Indians and they killed them by making them build these, you know. I remember him telling us those stories. So you wrote about that.
Right. That's not the story that most kids get about California missions. And fourth grade in the United States is when American kids learn about Indians, basically. That's the fourth grade unit anywhere. In Washington State, it was Lewis and Clark and the Oregon Trail, and here in California, it's the mission unit. I moved out of California before I had a chance to do a mission unit.
So you did one.
So I did one. That's what this book is.
Let's hear about it.
It's my very late 4th grade mission.
I'd like to hear some of it.
Okay. One of the things kids often do for their 4th grade project is make a glossary. So I did a glossary, and one of the entries in my glossary is bells. Bells, from the start, the hollow stones with voices, made in their own land, hard beyond rock or bone or abalone shell, shaped by hands of unseen beings we thought must be gods. Soldiers brought them from the ships, hung them first from trees, then on wooden frames. At last, the bell sounded from the campanario in the church itself, after we made it, after we built the church. The voice of the bell is the voice of the Padres. We try, but we cannot always obey. Bells at dawn, keening, bells ordering us to pray, the alcalde standing over us with cudgels and long canes, invoking silence. Bells direct us to breakfast, gruel of atole quickly swallowed. Bells tell us to scatter to our work, we women to laundry and looms, grinding corn or acorns or wheat, the gardens harvesting, storing, preparing, cooking. Men to the fields to plow, plant, slaughter cattle, adobe, plaster, tile, paint our designs inside the church. Men work their leather, repair soldiers' saddles, plait reins or the cords of whips they use on us. Seamstresses cut, stitch, clothe our naked shame. Blacksmith practice the art of heated metal, beating until the acceptable shape emerges. Vaqueros herd and skin the cattle for the hides the Spaniards love so, swimming in blood day after day till Indian skins smell like death too. Bells for midday meal, atole again. Bells return us to our labors, tell us to demand prayers or instruction in prayer. Bells determine the evening meal, maybe pozole with meat. Bells give us permission to sleep. Once the bells hung silent. The Padres told us to put all else aside, join in gathering a great tide of sardines. Oh, what pleasure while we brought in that slippery harvest. For days we waited in the surf with our baskets, salty water bathing us of dust and blood, sun claiming our bare backs. We sang lusty songs out beyond the Padres' hearing. I heard laughter all around me as the young unmarried men and women, separated in day by work and at night by lock and key, exchanged more than looks. Some of us caught as much as 10 barrels, but when the barrels ran out and still the sardines came, we showed the Padres how to open the sardines, remove the spines, put them to dry in the sun. This they gave away to anyone who asked. This would never have happened, we thought, if the bells still spoke. On Holy Day, we left the sardines in peace, went hunting for nests of water birds that live in the rocks. We passed that day camping on the beach, small groups of us, each with its fire, roasting and eating what we had caught. Friends rested together, gossiping. Daughters, normally sequestered in the Monjerio, leaned against their mothers contentedly. Children ate their fill, slept on the warm sand with bones still tight in their fists. Our souls swam gratefully into dream, whole and unbroken. The Padres stood to one side, watched, laughed to see us at such ease. Next day we woke to bells. The voice of the bell is the voice of the Padre. We tried, but we cannot always obey.
Wow, pretty powerful.
I took that story from a letter that Padre Serra wrote to some of his fellow priests about daily life at the mission. So that story really did happen. He really was describing how the bells defined the day. It was almost like a military kind of regime. And then one day, this huge wave of sardines came in, and everything had to stop while the Indians gathered them. So that's a real story. But you're seeing it from the Indian perspective instead of from the Spanish perspective.
And this is the story that should be told in history classes.
Right.
You know, so the kids learn the real history.
Yeah, that it was not something fun to be an Indian in a mission. I think probably a better example would be it was like being a slave in a southern plantation.
What kind of reaction do you get from your readers?
99.9% of the reactions have been really positive. Other California Indians saying, yes, this is the story that hasn't been told. and non-California Indians who are still Native people saying, wow, I never knew you guys had it this bad. We just sort of, I actually heard somebody say, I thought all you California Indians were dead. So sometimes they don't even know
They
we
tried
exist. Yeah, no kidding. It wasn't through lack of effort.
Right, that's true. Now, your family is very involved. I know your sister is chairwoman of the Esselen Nation.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Louise.
Louise, she's a good friend of mine. And there's been a lot of efforts to restore the language and so forth. Tell me about that.
Well, quite a while ago, I heard about a program at Berkeley called Breath of Life. And I kept urging Louise to sign up for it. And after a while, she finally did. It was kind of one of those things where if you say it long enough, she will. So she went for 1 year, and I got a phone call from her in the middle of the conference, and she was just ecstatic. She was saying, I can't believe this. We can learn our language. I know these words almost before I learn them. I'm writing a prayer. I'm understanding it. We can connect with our ancestors. And she was just walking on cloud nine. So she went another time by herself, and then finally, I think the third time, I went with her. And so I was able to get a taste of, for a week, of living with a lot of other California Indians, working to wake up their sleeping languages. And it was a really special time. They bring in linguists and assistants and show you how to use the materials at the Bancroft Library. You get to listen to old wax cylinder recordings, handle old ethnographic notes. It's really, really a beautiful thing.
I know I've seen a lot of the displays she has had at the different powwows. And they're normally educational displays, which are so important because there's so many youth kids that go to the powwows, and for them to actually see and touch and feel. She does a lot of the jewelry making.
Right.
And has the kids, make the jewelry, teaches them. So it's just so powerful to reconnect. And you said that's what a lot of your stories are, reconnecting.
Right, trying to put these little pieces that we found, not back to the original piece, but into a new kind of mosaic that we can claim as our identity. Something strong enough to withstand everything we've been through.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have another piece to read for us?
I do. I would love to read this piece that's something I wrote at the Breath of Life conference. It's my form of baby Esselen. It's called Teheyapami Achiska, which means giving honor or giving praise. It's for my sister Louise and the Breath of Life language conference. Ani micha elpa mishma kanano. I feel you in my blood. Nishiano, nishitin kanano. Nishachurno, in my bones, my gut, my teeth. Name sikosura niche akhi, you rise all around. Kolo pisik hudin opa, return like a lover. Nishku niche lahake, my basket, carry me. Nishimilia, niche lesapka, my ocean, bathe me. Eni name humu nipsha, I am your hummingbird. Name hi'iyatan neku masianech, you are a flower of the heart. Name cha'a nish ka ha sakhano, I feel you in my head. Nish kushuno, nish kaneno, my hands, my feet. Ucharat kai pire, we dance on the cliff of the world. Name cha'a nish cha wa sekano, I feel you in my spine. Nish horoksno, nish sihikano, my throat, my womb. Name sa na kakopa, eni inam kakopa. You are a river, I am the rain. Man tuhite, man tuhite, man tuhite, man tuhite. It is true, it is true, it is true, it is true. Nish welel, lech welel. My language, our language. Maksiri maknoko, breath of life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I had a lot of help writing that.
Did you? That's beautiful.
From Ruth, our assistant, and from my sister Louise.
Wow. Now, this is your third book. Where can someone get this book?
Heyday Books, which is based in Berkeley, and their website is just heydaybooks.com. So you can order directly from them. You can also get it on Amazon.com.
Okay.
And you can find it at Barnes & Noble They're one of the stores that carry it, and quite a few independent bookstores in the Bay Area are carrying it now.
Well, that's excellent. I hope they get it in all the schools too.
Well, it probably won't go into the grade schools. There are some things in there that you don't necessarily want to speak to fourth graders about, some realities.
But high school, college?
High school and college, it's already been picked up by numerous university courses
Oh, good.
across the
Excellent.
country.
Now, you've written 2 other books. Can you tell me about those?
Yes, my first book of poetry was called Indian Cartography, and it won the Diane Decora First Book Award from the Native Writers Circle of Americas.
Congratulations.
And I just entered a contest and won that, so it was a pretty big moment, a big surprise. And the second one is called The Zen of La Llorona, and it's also poetry, and that's from Salt Press. It was my second collection, so, better than the first in some ways.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing. And you're going to be making the rounds out in this area in California,
Right. I'm on
Northern
sabbatical.
California.
Yep, I'm on sabbatical this whole school year. So
Okay.
I've had a clump of time in January. Then I'll be back for a few more weeks in April. I'll be back for the LA Times Book Festival and doing readings around the area during that month of April.
That's excellent. Could I put you on the spot and ask you to read us another piece?
I would like to read this piece for
Wonderful.
my dad.
Okay.
My dad was one of the main reasons I took up this project. Like a lot of California Indians, trying to understand what happened to our parents and our grandparents helps us understand ourselves. This is called One for the Road. It's for my father, Alfred Edward Miranda, November 19th, 1927 to June 27th, 2009. I need a song. I need a song like a river, cool and dark and wet, like a battered old oak, gnarled bark, bitter acorns. A song like a dragonfly, shimmer, hover, swerve, like embers too hot to touch. I need a song like your scarred, calloused hands, a song with the echo of solstice, a seed's hard and shiny promise. I need a song like ashes, like abalone, tough as stone, smooth as a ripple at the edge of the bay. I need a song with a heart wrapped in barbed wire, a song with a good set of lungs. I need a song with guts. I need a song like lightning, just one blaze of insight, a song hurtling from hurricane's mouth, a snake-charming song, a busting up song, a shut up and listen to the Creator song. I need a song that rears its head up like Mount Diablo, beacon for the dispossessed. I need a song small enough to fit in my pocket, big enough to wrap around the wide shoulders of my grief. A song with chords raw as cheap rum and a rhythm that beats like magma. I need a song that forgives me. I need a song that forgives my lack of forgiveness. I need a song so terrible that the first note splinters like slate, spits shards out into the universe. Yes, that's the song I need, the right song to accompany your first steps along the Milky Way. Song with serrated edges, burnt red rim slicing into the Pacific. The song you taught me, Daddy. Howling notes that hit the ghost road hard, never look back.
Wow, that's a powerful one. Is your father still with us?
No, he passed away a few years ago.
I'm sure he enjoyed that.
You know, he never liked me writing about him.
Really?
And somebody once said the best revenge for a daughter is to be a writer. The worst thing that can happen to a father. But I really do feel like, he had a story to tell that he couldn't. So I'm telling parts of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And again, where can someone get the book?
HeydayBooks.com or Amazon.
Amazon. And the book is Bad Indians. You should pick it up because we have to support our Native writers. We don't have many of them.
It's been a tough road to hoe. When I was growing up in the 1970s, I could not find any Native writers, and that was one of the reasons I gave up writing. I didn't have any role models. A couple days ago, I was at UC Santa Cruz talking to the students there, and several Native writers came up to me and said, what do you do in creative writing when they tell you to stop writing political stuff about being Indian? And I said, don't stop writing it.
I've heard that.
You know,
I've heard
it's like,
that.
if you're Indian, you can't really be anything but political. That doesn't mean it can't also be beautiful poetry. So, you know, I'm really happy if I can be a model for some kids.
And you are a role model. You are a role model. You're a role model being a professor.
Hey.
And how long have you been teaching now?
I've been teaching for about 14 years, and actually I just found out that the English department voted unanimously to promote me to full professor.
Wow, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
For our doctor. Good for you. That's wonderful. So how do you like teaching?
I love it.
Yeah?
I love it. I never get tired of introducing students to American ethnic literature and teaching them critical ways of looking at the world and expressing themselves. So,
Do you find that the reception is different on the West Coast versus East Coast?
yes,
Yeah.
I would say so. I am often the only Native person my East Coast students have ever met.
Really?
Yeah. So for a long time they didn't know what to make of me. And one of the student evaluations said, "She's a Native American feminist." You know, and he didn't mean it in a nice way, but it actually has worked to my favor because, you know, I sort of attract students who want that alternative perspective.
And so you're going to be going to colleges mainly in the area here?
Well, colleges, bookstores, I'm visiting genealogical societies and historical societies, basically any place that is interested in California history.
That's great. And you mentioned about some of the pictures that you have in your book, and we won't be showing the pictures, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you picked what you selected for the book.
Well, some of them are family photos that go with stories. Some of them are pictures of Indians that have great stories to go with them, like Jacinta Gonzalez, who worked in Monterey at the restaurant where Robert Louis Stevenson stayed when he was visiting in Monterey. And before he had written Treasure Island or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he lived in Monterey and got really sick. And Jacinta Gonzalez was an Esalen woman who was called to heal him. So, you know, there's this, I found a picture of her that's just amazing. So some of them are historical photographs. Some of them are pictures of newspaper documents, such as where the title comes from. Bad Indian Goes on Rampage at Santa Ynez was a Los Angeles Times headline in 1909. With an accompanying story about a Miranda family who came barreling out of the house, each one with a gun.
Oh,
so,
boy.
yeah, so lots of documents, ethnographic notes, mission records, even a BIA blood quantum chart.
Oh, that was interesting, too. You tell me about that story.
Well, my mom, when I was 13, wanted to see if I might be eligible to apply for some college scholarships. So she wrote to the BIA. This was before she had gotten back together with my dad, and asked them, you know, how do I find this out? And they sent her a copy of this elaborate graph that you had to figure out how many tenths of Indian the mother was and how many tenths of Indian the father was, and kind of draw this graph together. And it just was so complicated.
See where you end up in the middle, huh?
Yeah, and somewhere in there, somewhere in that
Look
graph
kinda
is
like
me.
these,
Yeah,
star quilts
yeah.
out here.
And so I was sitting around with those one day, and I thought, I can think of something better to do with these charts. So I had a good time. I had a good time with
That's
that.
great. Well, I want to congratulate you on all of the work you've done. You've done an excellent job. You're a great role model for all of us, and especially for our youth coming up, that they have someone to look forward to that's a writer, that's a doctor, you know, educator, and it's wonderful. And, you know, that you're bringing with your family the language back, and so involved, because I know your sister's so involved.
Absolutely.
In everything in the community.
I
So
know.
that's really wonderful. So again, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to Native Voice TV.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it a lot.
And the audience out there, I want to thank you for watching Native Voice TV for all these years. You know, we're going on 9 years now. Can you believe that? But we are on Facebook. So if you look for Facebook, you'll see pictures from today's shooting. You'll see pictures that we've taken, different events that we've gone to in the community. Sipatsing David Romero's our photographer. So he's out there just putting everything in our memory books there. And actually, that's one thing that we want to do this year is have a pictorial book of all the different events and community members
Great
and
idea.
people who have been involved who, you know, they're there all the time. We count on them, but let's recognize them.
Absolutely.
Let's put them in the history book so someone else can look at
That's
them later
right.
on and see who they were, what they did. Because some of the people that we've even had on the show are gone.
Yeah.
You know, so at least we can have some kind of something that we can leave for our kids, leave for the libraries, leave for the schools to have a record
Yeah, I
of
think
what our
that's-
community was involved in.
That's a lesson we've learned, right? If we don't document it, nobody will.
That's right, and we have to document it correctly. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Good night.
Indigenous